Hey everyone, this is just a quick update on the Womtham map that you see on the screen in front of you. I did a couple of off-camera sessions and I kind of wanted you to get kind of caught up with where I'm at, what I did, and why I did it this way and in this order. I just drew a little dot on the screen. Okay, there we go. So, very quick, just zooming out a touch. City of Womtham definitely taking shape. We've got a lot of detail added into our river edges here. You're going to see that I've done a lot of work up in the top left. Going to talk about that in a second. A lot of work down here as well. And I've jumped up here. Why? Well, let's break this down. First and foremost, normally I actually do the outside of a city last. This might be the first time I've actually started outside of the city. And I think the reason for that is I wanted to kind of get the spirit of Womtham. Womtham is a heavy logging, I'm going to call it town, even though it is a city of 20,000 people. But it's a heavy logging industry. So I kind of wanted to get that feel in here. And in which case you're probably going to start asking yourself, well, what have I done to do that? Well, first and foremost, if it has been logging for a long time, would not all of the nearby trees be gone? Yes, but if I chop all of the trees down, we just end up with this wasteland that looks something like loggers have been through the area of the Pacific Northwest. Then it's just a bunch of dots, right? Little tree stumps, fallen trees, etc. Let's kind of zoom in on this a little bit. And that's cool and everything, but I feel then you don't have the dichotomy, almost, if that's the correct word, of showing what's been lost. And to show what's been lost, I wanted to show what's still there. And that way you can see the encroachment into the tree line. And you can see that this is truly lost trees, right? Lost woods. And I think having what's gone and what's still there next to each other helps me kind of have that negative space really be emphasized. The trees become a framing tool. So I ran with this, and of course, if you're going to start doing that type of thing, I started then adding the logging industries. You'll see we've got little tiny one here. I like doing the little logs on the side. Would it be like this in a logging industry? I don't know, but I think it implies stacks of wood, right? So I kind of, and then wherever I got this, I've got little sort of roads coming off. And I kind of did that to frame the whole north section. And that kind of, I feel, gave me a good sort of foundation for what is going to come next. I then started to come down. Now I'm going to zoom out just a speck here. I started to come down towards the city proper. But I wanted to then capture what is going on near these logging industries as we start to transition into the sprawl outside the North Gate. And I mentioned this in one of the earlier videos. I absolutely wanted to capture some fertile areas, some farms. There would be farms. They've got people to feed. So I've started to insert my fields. I like irregular shapes like this, but it's clearly man-made. You know, this is not a 100% natural shape occurring in nature. This is a man, like, marking his little field. The way I do this, by the way, is a combination of either dots and dashes. This is a fence to me. And little tiny squiggles, like little tiny clouds. These are bushes, so more of a hedgerow. Use a combination of both, sometimes together. Where we've got gaps like this. That, to me, in my mind's eye, says that it's a well, an opening, duh, but a gateway of some description. Throw in the odd little farm building, throw in the odd little sort of grain silo. You get the general idea. And then over here, I wanted to kind of like filter that out and get into the industry. I want the north side of town to be industrial. That's going to be the brand of Womtham, right? So how do I do that? I cut out the edge. This now feels man-made, right? It's like the docks of London or something like that on a smaller scale. I love the concept of buildings overhanging the water. I've seen this a lot in this Portland area, but anywhere where you've had old like dockyard industry going on, you always see signs of this. Get some piers coming out from this shed-like area. Get some big warehouses. I love warehouses to have multiple doors on them, like so. Maybe even multiple roofs, like this. My warehouses tend to be a little bit more regularly drawn. They're larger buildings, and I want them to feel like a more of a robust construction, so they don't have the loose feel of these small farmhouses that you see here, or even these small little industries up here. And then more of the logs, even little tiny cart. Get a crane. This is one thing I've loved to add to my cities recently, particularly in sort of industrial areas and on docks areas, is this type of crane type of thing. It just starts to add to the industry quality, right? Get some little crates dropped on the side, more logs, crates, logs, etc., etc., etc. Feels like something is going on here. Hopefully that you agree. This, I think, really started to take shape. Now, at that juncture, as I'm coming in towards town, I wanted to have this road, and it is a major road that's coming out of town, start to show some of the sprawl of the growth that Womtham has had. We're going to do some on the east side as well, but I definitely wanted to start capturing this here. I think we had a graveyard or something over here too, maybe up here, but I think we're going to melt into that over here. But that said, what were my driving factors here? Well, first and foremost, I wanted it to feel loose, a little haphazard, not planned at all, way more that it is sort of grown out of necessity, and people have just been sort of planting down sort of these sort of shacks and buildings next to each other, and almost accidentally roads have started to form. You've seen how I draw these. Everything's negative space. By use of little paths and buildings, what's left between them are the roads. I draw the roads. You can actually see it right here. Just imagine a pencil. It's a pencil line, right? It's a trace line. I draw out the shape. I then draw buildings next to it. Here, I felt like the buildings were getting a little bit congested. I want this to be more of the feel of in town. So I fought against that a little bit, and I'm keeping them spread out a little looser. It's particularly as we start heading out towards the fringes of the sprawl. And I think this gives us a good feel. This is part of town, but it's more. It feels like the criminal element would be here, right? It feels definitely like this is a less than desirable place to live. The property values are a little bit lower, and there's no protection from the city walls. Talking of which, I then was sort of thinking, well, what do I do next? Where do I go next from this? And I didn't want to then just jump straight into the city over here. I kind of wanted to sort of pull into the city a little bit. I wanted to start capturing some of the key locations in Womtham to give us all a great sense for what Womtham is about. So I did that in a couple of ways. I started here. And first and foremost, remember, when I draw my buildings, it might be a building or a shack, but it might also be a collection of buildings, so more like a city block. I imagine this, I'm going to use the phrase, an apartment block, so to speak. Imagine this is being viewed from above. There's no alleyways between these buildings. What would it look like? Well, a haphazard shape, something like this, or this, or this, or that. So what I wanted to do was make these buildings feel, or these building blocks feel larger than the sprawl outside. So I'm using this as almost a petri dish. Would that be the correct word? A test bed, certainly, for like getting away from this type of size and that, and getting bigger blocks in here. So this was me literally turning my brain away from this into this. And I think that it was a good exercise because I just kept drawing smaller and smaller and smaller. And I don't want that to be the case here, you know. Also, it allowed me to clean up our walls a little bit and finish off this gatehouse area and start coming across the bridge. Now, a couple of things before we get across the bridge. I like drawing my piers like this. Like, not just straight, but ones with little bits coming off the side or they're angled. Add some little crates or goods on the piers. Add them next to warehouses too, right? Helps make this feel like a warehouse. And I can show that I did the similar pier. Add a crane, usual sort of crane. You get the sort of general gist. Here's my multiple doors. Here's my goods. That helps differentiate this and this and this from other buildings over here. Then I hit the bridge. Now, a few things here. I wanted this to feel like the old London Bridge. I wanted buildings on it. This is a major road in a congested city that has had a huge population growth recently. I kind of wanted the bridge to become part of that. So we've got buildings on it. Just like London Bridge had. And I figured that could be kind of cool. Likewise, I've got some steps coming down into the waterline. I figured there might be little boats, fishermen, whatever, here. Help sort of integrate this into the water's edge a little. I've got my bridge supports. I do like adding this because I think bridges should have them. But often you will see the actual foundations, those pylons, so to speak, coming out wider than the bridge itself. Helps me also add this interference to the water, right, where the water's buffeting against it and then sort of streaming out. This, I think, helps sort of define river flow. I'm going to do something with the island. I'm not quite sure what, but I know that people are coming up and down on the island, so I added some ramps down. I did ramps, not stairs, because I figured maybe they even bring carts and horses down here or something. So we're definitely going to do something fun here. I also had this brainwave of maybe as you're coming in and out of the city, maybe there's some statues or carvings into the edge of the river. Edge of the bridge. So as you're kind of coming up into town, maybe we've got this warrior here, and as you're sort of coming back out, we've got this warrior with a shield and a spear. I thought it'd be a nice sort of addition to things. And then I didn't want to just keep piling into the rest of the city just yet. I wanted to get back up here into the industrial area. And there's a few things I'm playing around with here. If you look at the map of London, there's this series of docks. They call them like the docks of London, and they all have different names. But they're kind of these, I'm going to call them cutouts, connected with canals. The canals can be spanned by bridges. I thought that this starts to add a great sort of industrial feel. Then I thought, well, wouldn't it be a great idea if they floated the logs down the river, they gathered them, maybe they gather them in this area, and this is where they process them. So with that said, let's start adding facilities to pull logs out of the water. Over here, cranes, maybe they pull up here, and maybe this is a sawmill of some description. So we've got lots and lots of like the logs that have been working here. Down here, I thought we'll add a little bit of sawdust, so to speak, but a little bit of sort of texturing next to this. And then over here, I thought, well, I'll add a bunch of water mills here, and they provide some kind of power into this area. You know, and I don't know if this would work in real life, but I thought it kind of looks fun. Where, you know, the water flow is channeled into here. It's like it's narrower, so it drives all of these. So over here, maybe they've got a couple of buildings and a small little footbridge, and major buildings right here. I'm not quite sure how the power gets connected, but something like that. I think there's even, I forget the name for it now, but there's a method of getting power like this from actually having the tidal flow in and out of here, and it's kind of gated, you know, so as the tide comes in, this area fills up, or maybe this area fills up, and then you gate it off. and then the tide goes out, and then you use this stored water to kind of sort of sluice it out, and through those sluice gates you can get some power. But this is a river, and it's not tidal, to my understanding. It's not tidal, so I'm staying away from that, but still trying to get that nice industrial feel going on that I think water wheels are giving us. So if I zoom out, it's definitely got a good look going on. And we're going to continue this type of thing over here and fill it. That's going to be what I work on next. And I'm going to show you actually in the next video how I do that. I'm going to record it right after this one. But what do you think? How do you think this is taking shape? I'm beginning to like this. I think it has a good feel. It's beginning to have its own personality. But let me know down in the comments below. Not only that, but if there's something that you think should be added to this map, tell me. And maybe we'll actually be able to do it. And if you are entertained by what we're doing here with these Greyhawk City maps, maybe hit this video up with a like and tickle that little subscribe button. Much love to you all. I'm going to see you in the next video.